As civilized human beings, we've developed a language of descriptions to help us name and identify certain things. For example, if you were to say, handsome guitar playing guy, you'd be talking about me or maybe 5 or 6 other guys. Now, if you were to be more specific and say Sean Daniel, handsome guitar playing guy, then we've really narrowed it down, haven't we? Unfortunately, guitar chords do not share the same principles. In fact, if you were to say play the G chord, 90% of guitar players would just do something like this. One of the first chord shapes that we learn, one of the easiest ones, but really if we try to move the shape around, it doesn't really work. And it doesn't work because of certain few reasons that we're going to talk about right now and how we can use knowledge that you already innately know in your head to turn this into a movable shape. Right? So let's talk about why it doesn't work as a movable shape. If we have these 3 fingers down right here, right? Middle finger on 3E, pointer finger 2A, ring finger or pinky, whatever, on the bottom string 3. You can think of it as 3 different notes. And any major or minor chord is always going to be just 3 different notes. It's called a triad, a 3-note chord, right? Now, even though we're only holding down 3 different notes, we're playing 6 strings. And the thing you have to remember is that the open strings are helping us out. So even though playing one shape will yield a certain result in one position, if you move that shape's position, you have to bring the open strings with you. So really quick, we're going to talk about the notes that you're playing when you're playing just a G major chord, right? So the first one is a G, the second one is a B, and the third one is a D. Now, to fulfill the triad of a G major chord, we've already been successful. We don't need any more notes. The only reason we're adding more strings is because it's easy to do so, and it's going to make a bigger sound. So we have a G, a B, a D, another G, another B, and another G. In fact, some voicings you'll see for G major look like this. And all we're doing there is we're taking a B and we're adding another D. So we have a very D-ish G major as compared to one with more Bs. Any combination of G, B, and D is going to give you a G major chord. If you had a guitar with 100 strings on them and you had 100 Bs, 1 G, and 1 D, that's still a G major chord. It doesn't matter how many you have of each one. It's just that it exists and it's there, right? So we're going to start looking at an inversion. An inversion in music is when you're playing a chord but you're not playing the root note first. So the root note of a G major chord right here is where your middle finger is, right? So there's the G. That's what the chord name is responsible for, right? So a G, then we have a B and a D. Now we're going to look at those 3 notes, G, B, D, as our first chord movable shape that we can use anywhere, right? So this, like if you've ever heard of the caged chord system, a lot of the principles in this are the same thing, but we're just going to focus on one shape and see the inversions all around the neck with just this specific chord, right? So we have a 3-note triad, and we can move this anywhere. Now, this is just going to be any kind of major chord. We just happened to have rooted it on the G note here. If we were to move it down one, we're going to take that open string with us, make that D a D sharp, and it's going to look like this. You can use your pinky to kind of make it a little bit easier. So that's a G sharp major. Keep going. A major, A sharp major, B flat major, B major, so on and so forth. Now you have to kind of be careful and not hit all 6 strings when you do it this way. You just have to hit the ones that you're holding. But that is what is allowing us to make a movable shape and turn one shape into 12 different chords, because there's only 12 notes in music. So we're rooting it on one of the 12 notes, so we have 12 different chords with one voicing. Now the first inversion of this is instead of having a G, B, D, we're going to have a B, a D, and a G. So same group of notes, we're just starting on a different one first. And if we go back to the regular G major shape, there's the B, open D, open G, right? So as long as we play just the A, D, and G strings, we get that same chord. Now I can move this around, right? All I have to do is remember that now my root note is going to be whatever the G string is. So if I know that the 5th fret on the G string is a C, like an octave down, find a C, I can do that same thing right here, where I have 7A, 5D, 5G. I'm just taking a little piece of that G chord and now I'm moving it all over the place. So that would be the first inversion of that, right? Now if we go one beyond, we can just look at the same shape again. But now I'm just going to focus in on all the open strings. And this is probably the easiest way. Like the easiest way to play a G chord is just playing these 3 strings, D, G, and B, right? Now, I can also move this one around. In fact, an A major chord is really just this inversion. Now, in an A major chord, you're getting open strings too, but we don't need them. We can just play the ones that we're holding down, and we go A, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, over and over, right? And then the last one we're gonna do the bottom 3 strings. Now, if you look at this is gonna be a little bit interesting because if we just take the bottom 3, we have a G, a B, and another G. So we don't have a D in this one. Now, you can kind of get away with using this as a replacement for a major chord, but to really truly be a major triad, we need to have a D in there somewhere too, right? So now I'm just getting the bottom 4 strings. So if you were to move this up a fret, you'd have to take all these with you to make your G sharp, all of these with you to make A major, A sharp major, B major, C major, so on and so forth. So really we've taken little chunks of this one chord and turned them into the first voicing, the second voicing, the third voicing, and I guess kind of the fourth voicing, if you want to look at it. Now, why do we need to know this? One thing it's really helpful in is if you're into compositions and stuff like that, and maybe you want to like be an acoustic singer-songwriter, just singer-songwriter in general when you're writing, a good kind of rule of thumb is to keep the melody on top. Now, what does that mean? Having a melody, like say you're gonna sing a note over a chord and you want it to be a G, right? Then you want your voice to sit on top of the melody. So if you're gonna sing this note, maybe you should play a voicing that doesn't end with this note because then you're gonna be competing with frequencies with the instrument and your voice. So knowing different voicings is a good way to kind of make room for a vocal or another guitar or another instrument in general, right? If you have like a 2 guitar attack, like 2 people in a band that are both playing guitar, and one person is playing an open G chord, you might want to find a different voicing to kind of give it more of a dynamic range and kind of fill the sonic spectrum up a little bit. So maybe one person could be playing a G up here, and another person could be playing like a higher G down here. And it just kind of adds a variance so everything doesn't sound the same. Especially if you feel like you're getting stuck with your own songwriting compositions, try using different inversions from different chords, and it'll just really kind of open up a lot of creativity, and you're just going to be mastering the fretboard on the way too.